Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here with a hot take, and this time we're talking about what else? Portland, Antifa again. So this time I'd like to talk about how the local government seems to be fronting for these rioters. So this is a clip from DHS spokesperson. Portland's politicians are silencing their police officers. Trying to cover up the truth is a strong indicator that it's not on your side. And this is from Rep. Paul Gosser. And you can. So this is the reporter talking to a sergeant.
The topic that I wanted to ask you about was the presence of the federal officers here in Portland. A lot of people have, including the mayor, have said that they had the impression that the protests were dying down just before the. I'm sorry?
You're not allowed to talk.
Even just your take.
See, the guy off camera, who's I assume's in charge of the sergeant, says we're not allowed to talk about that, and basically just shuts down the whole interview. Of course, Andy No, always on top of this. He's got this clip. I'm going to try to play it without the cursing. This is someone who claims to be the press, although it's a little hard to tell because some of the Antifa members are just putting press on their helmets and in order to say, "Oh, you're hurting the press." But I got to skip like the first few seconds, try to get past the cursing.
What you have to do is make the capitalists care of what you're doing, and how you make them do that is by fucking with their shit.
Yeah.
So that's my perspective on that. But aside from that, relatively speaking, there hasn't been much damage. There's been some spray paint. Occasionally there's a broken window, but that doesn't even happen that often. Like, when you come right down to it, about the only thing that happens is some spray paint and some people yelling. And
That's a unbelievable yeah, I know, John. It's an outrage. It's a total outrage, and I totally agree with you, little doggy. Andy has well documented, and here's some of it right here. There they are, lighting a fire and breaking a window. This is the Multnomah building in Portland. As you can see, they managed to light some of it on fire, but fortunately it doesn't go up. But they threw bricks through the window, and these idiots videotape everything, of course. So I think there's another video up here. Yeah. So this is them throwing the bricks through the window. And I believe this is some sort of municipal building or courthouse. I'm not totally sure. But, there's another journalist that Andy recommends, Hannah Ray Lambert. Let's see what she's got going on. Oh, she's got some riot videos as well. So, as you can see, it's video after video of her in the midst. And she's got some of that same video. Yeah, she captured this video of the glass breaking. Here it is here. You can see it all smashed up. Here's somebody playing a drum. Let's just see a little of this. Yeah, it's just them standing around. But my point is this. So you've got the police. They've been completely neutered, right? They're not allowed to talk. They have made so many rules that they can't really arrest or engage the protesters. The few protesters they can and do arrest get let go by the prosecutor and get instant bail. They're also working with online platforms to raise money so these people could get out instantly. including people who have been charged with not just vandalism and rioting, but all sorts of other sick crimes, including one individual who has allegedly had, let's say, bad pictures of children on his computer. So, this is just disgusting at this point. It's unacceptable, is what it is. And so you have the media, who's totally on board with this rioting, the cops, who have been completely neutered, and people say, oh, how could Trump just let these cities rot? These cities should rot. These people voted for this. And many of them are in these crowds. Many of them continue to be for this, even as the city crumbles around them. Because they think, well, we're winning, and then as soon as our people are in charge, they're going to fix everything. How are you going to fix everything? The people with money left. The people who had businesses and got out of the cities. They're gone. They're probably never coming back if they had a bad experience, and a lot of them have. The only reason I think LA hasn't fallen under the same, flight pattern is because LA's pretty sprawled. It's like LA's really spread out if you've ever been there. The other cities, they're a little tighter. San Francisco, it's a little more bunched in, especially the nicer parts that are being abandoned. And definitely New York is very, very congested and bunched in. But LA, it's all over the place. It's probably the only thing saving it, because you could still kind of feel like you're away from all that. And if you stay on your mansion or whatever, your mansion grounds, you probably don't see or hear any of that, any of this kind of stuff. Now, most of it's not in LA anyway, but, there's a lot of homelessness in LA. Oh, Joan, you interrupt everything. Portland's just done. I don't think Portland's ever going to come back. Would you go back to Portland? After night, I mean, they've experienced almost 3 straight months now. They're coming up on 3 months of rioting. Continuous rioting. This is going to destroy the city. I mean, it's going to completely destroy it. Who would want to have a business here? Who would want to build a life in a place like Portland? And how are the communists going to run everything? There's not going to be any money. Do you understand? Dummies? You don't have any money. And the people with money have left. There'll be no one left to tax. What are you going to do? Tax the rest of the state to support your programs? That's not going to work. And even if it does sort of kind of work and you keep the programs up, they're not going to be able to pay your bills. They're not going to pay for you to live in the city as rents plummet and the city starts to fall apart and the infrastructure starts to decay. That's what happened to Detroit. And then the next thing you know, you got trees growing out of abandoned houses. That's, you've got miles and miles of houses in Detroit that were just abandoned. That's what you're going to have in and around Portland. No one's going to go anywhere near the area. No one's going to deliver food there. and the few outlets that will have food, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. You're not going to be able to afford it. Which means you're going to, whatever meager scraps the local government gives you to survive aren't going to go very far. All the poor people are going to be forced to leave because there won't be any work there. The only people who will want to continue to live there are you idiots. Squatting in abandoned houses, scrounging for food, I guess. What I really, though, think is that the Democrats believe that they can end this like that. They believe well, Biden will get in and then we'll just end it all. It'll just stop. we'll win, and then we'll just take back the streets. Now, to some extent, that's pretty possible, right? I mean, if all these Democratic governors and Democratic mayors suddenly turned back to the police and said, okay, clean up the streets. No, we're going to fund you. Yeah, all that was BS. Go ahead, clean up the streets, arrest everybody. You have an open mandate to make sure these guys all go to jail. Which is very likely is what they would do. They would kind of clean up the streets, but that still wouldn't bring back the businesses. They're not coming back. Miles and miles or blocks and blocks of New York City are just boarded up, expensive stores. Why would any of those stores come back? De Blasio has turned it into a nightmare. He's got homeless people staying in high-priced hotels. And those hotels are ruined, I think. They're going to have to go in there. They're going to have to replace furniture and carpeting, expensive furniture and carpeting, get it to match the rest of the hotel, and then try to reopen the hotel in a city where nobody can get in without being quarantined, where there are checkpoints everywhere and everything's closed. How can you possibly operate a business? The Democrats are destroying everything on their way out. I don't know how, but they should be held accountable for this. Because I think it's 100% has nothing to do with the virus, has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. This is all about one thing and one thing only. They know they're going to lose. And they're trying to ruin everything so badly that the Republicans will have to spend the next 4 years trying to put the pieces back together. And so by 2024, they could say, see what a wreck they made of everything? They've had 4 years, and what have they done? That's the plan. The reason I say that is Republicans used to do the same thing. When I was a canvasser for, I think it was called like Action New Jersey or something, one of the people I canvassed worked for, I'll just say, a Republican administration in New Jersey. And they were offered 2 different budgets for the outgoing Republican governor, so that the ingoing Democratic governor, could have a budget. Because that first year, it's the other governor who approves the budget for next year, which he's done, right? So this Republican governor had 2 budgets. One was a balanced budget, and the other put New Jersey in debt very heavily. Well, guess what he picked? He picked the debt version of the budget because he was screwing over the opposition by doing that. His opponent would start handicapped and have to dig his way out. That's how much politicians care about us. That they would screw us all without a second thought because, hey, it's politics. I don't care about you people. I care about me and my party and our gang and our tribe. And you're sort of a part of that, but you don't have any choice, do you? Yeah, that's their attitude. So it doesn't surprise me that the Democrats would do this. I think they know exactly what they're doing. They are going to wreck everything. And as I said, part of this is getting at Donald Trump, especially for de Blasio. I promise you, behind the scenes, and this is just my opinion, my guess, my speculation, but they're saying to de Blasio, step on the gas, ruin this city, make sure all of his assets are broken or are valueless. Destroy them any way you can. I think that's part of the strategy. So they're trying to get at his money and at his business. So, when he leaves office even, he'll be hurting. Fortunately, I think Trump, despite all this, first off, he's going to win. And second off, I think he could dig us out of the hole anyway. Assuming the economy doesn't collapse, which there's a good possibility of that. But again, nobody's blaming him. Nobody's blaming him for a lot of stuff because it's not his fault. I mean, the Democrats might have been able to pull this off if they had just had lightly sort of dusted this, sort of very subtly, not really supported it, but not, quietly kind of winked and said, yeah, go ahead, riot. We're not going to do anything. But instead, their support has been so overt, so over the top. There's been so much virtue signaling by them. Oh, yeah, the language of the unheard. And a lot of these idiot sheep have picked up on that, and they think it's a license to run around and punch people they don't like and cause all sorts of mayhem. Language of the unheard. It's nuts. And now it's coming home to roost. That's why Biden's starting to slip big time, even in the polls done by CNN. And at some point, the media is just going to turn on the Democrats. It's starting to happen already. With the second night, Biden got criticized even by Stephen Colbert. Started making fun of him because it's just so cringy to see him talk and walk. This cannot continue. And the Republicans are going to be in power for a long time because the Democrats have essed the bed again and again.